Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
There have been more arrests today in Saudi Arabia as a major purge of powerful princes, ministers and businessmen continues. New officials have been sworn in to take over from more than 40 prominent figures arrested over the weekend. And according to the Attorney General, this is just phase one of the anti-corruption crackdown. Here's our international editor, Lindsay Hilson.
He water skis in Egypt. He cycles through Red Square and plays volleyball in Turkey. Alas, the holiday adventures of Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, one of the world's richest men, were curtailed this weekend when he was arrested in Riyadh along with 10 other Saudi princes. The purge came at the behest of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman as he consolidates power under the guise of fighting corruption.
Mohammed Salman is seeking absolute power, and he is willing to do whatever he needs to do to become the future king of Saudi Arabia at the expense of a whole range of senior princes. Most of them are probably in detention now.
More were arrested today on top of the weekend tally of businessmen and princes, which included 2 sons of the late King Abdullah. Mittab bin Abdullah, the head of the Saudi National Guard, and Turki bin Abdullah, a former governor of Riyadh province. The Talal family branch has been targeted through Prince Al-Walid, who has investments in major Western companies, including News Corp, Twitter and the Savoy Hotel. Prince Mittab bin Abdullah is seen here receiving Black Hawk helicopters bought from the US. Maybe the Crown Prince was unsure where the loyalty of the National Guard lay.
There are 2 types of princes. There's the type that had a strong military base, such as Mittab bin Abdullah, the commander of the National Guard, who was removed from office. The other princes are basically princes who may not have supported Mohammed bin Salman fully in his privatization program, his Saudization program. Most of them are in the private sector.
Prince Salman has had their assets frozen. Seen here with Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, he presents himself as a youthful, modernizing leader, but he also spearheaded the war in Yemen. He's made a point of getting close to President Trump, who visited in May, and is unlikely to curb Prince Salman's domestic power grab, nor his increasingly belligerent stance towards Saudi Arabia's regional rival, Iran.
Reaching the Muslims' holy shrines is a key goal of the Iranian regime, so we will not wait until the fight happens here in Saudi Arabia, but will ensure that the battle happens in Iran.
Today, Saad al-Hariri, who resigned as Prime Minister of Lebanon, not at home but in Riyadh this weekend, met the Saudi king. The Saudis have long influenced Lebanese politics through the Hariri family, but they're worried that Iran's influence in Lebanon is so great now, their proxy has become a fig leaf for their enemy. The princes are said to be incarcerated in the gulag that is the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Riyadh. It looks serene, but the danger is that by purging all rivals and advisors, Crown Prince Salman may increase instability both at home and across the region.
Lindsay Hilson.
It's hard to imagine the extent of the convulsion at the weekend in Saudi Arabia. The kingdom's 32-year-old Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who became the heir apparent this year, has carried out a sweeping royal purge, ostensibly an anti-corruption drive, including billionaire Prince Alawid bin Talal and 10 other princes, one the chief of the National Guard. It's also being described as a move to consolidate his power by eliminating rivals opposed to his social and economic reform plans and eventual succession as king. The arrests and ministerial changes amount to a fundamental transformation of the state as it's existed since the 1960s. Mike Thompson reports.
Few outside Saudi Arabia had heard of Prince Mohammed bin Salman before his father became king in January 2015. But since then, the 32-year-old has become the most powerful man in the world's biggest oil-exporting nation, after being named first in line to the throne 6 months ago by his father, King Salman. The prince's rise has been rapid and his policies and methods controversial. Never more so than on Saturday night, when under his orders 11 princes, 4 ministers and dozens of former ministers were arrested. Among those previously powerful and untouchable figures was billionaire Al-Walid bin Talal, co-owner of London's Savoy Hotel and one of the wealthiest men in the world. Those arrested are now thought to be being held in the luxury Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Riyadh. Saturday's crackdown follows the arrests in September by balaclavaed security officials of a range of clerics, academics and businessmen. Many view the latest arrests as little more than a brazen attempt to weed out dissent and political rivals of the ambitious heir to the throne. This amid speculation that King Salman may soon abdicate. Early on Saturday evening, the Crown Prince, whose first move on becoming Defence Minister was to launch his country's military campaign in Yemen, removed the Minister of the National Guard, Prince Miteb, who had been regarded as a potential rival to the throne. But his supporters argue that such measures are needed to push through austerity reforms and help diversify the economy of this oil-dependent nation. The Crown Prince recently took charge of the country's newly created Anti-Corruption Committee, adding to his long list of powerful posts. It's not yet clear just how far he will go to silence his remaining critics, or whether self-interest rather than national interest is determining his policies.
Mike Thompson. Well, joining me now in the studio is Frank Gardner, our security correspondent. Frank Gardner, first of all, for the Crown Prince to act so quickly over the weekend and decisively, he must have had strong backers.
Well, for a start, he's got his father, the king, King Salman, who is the absolute ruler in Saudi Arabia. But the king is 81 and he's not in good health. And essentially, he has devolved a huge amount of power to his favourite son, the man you've just seen there, the Crown Prince. He's got another backer, a pretty important one, President Trump. Not just President Trump, but Jared Kushner, the son-in-law, who was in Riyadh only a few days ago. I went to Riyadh in May, covered the Trump visit. It was extraordinary mood music between the White House and the House of Saud. They got on incredibly well. And I think President Trump views Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman almost as a young Donald Trump. He's somebody who's not afraid to court controversy, bold moves, doesn't mind how many enemies he gathers. But
we know that some of them, well, the most powerful prince, who actually owns half of the Savoy, apparently is holed up in the Ritz-Carlton with the other 10 princes. What is going to happen to them?
Nobody is suggesting that they're going to get capital punishment. But at the same time, the Saudi leadership has made it clear that nobody is above the law, that their princely background will not necessarily save them from the law. But the charges haven't been made precisely public. We know that they are accused of abuse of power, of corruption, of bribery, etc. But Saudi law is very opaque. There is no constitution, there's no judicial process. It's left up to judges. So essentially, this is a political case rather really than a judicial one.
Well, we know now, of course, already that the Crown Prince wants to make various reforms, female driving and so forth, but 70% of the country is under 30. Is it a kind of powder keg in the sense that he had to do something?
He did. And I think, probably the way to look at this, Kirsty, is, let's look at it as a spectrum. If you're optimistic, if you're a fan of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, as many, many young Saudis are, you would say he sees the future, he's a visionary, he knows that they can't go on in the way they have been, something's got to change. They've got to wean themselves off the way they've been dependent on oil income, find proper jobs. Pessimists would say that he is melting the glue that holds the country together, and that's a very risky thing to do.
And also, there's no sign of any kind of flowering of democracy. This is a case of actually collecting power unto himself.
It is, again, to try to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's in order to push through the reforms he wants. But this is a man who's already got massive power. He controls the military, the economy, the royal court, foreign policy, you name it, it's in his hands.
And what are the implications for the region?
providing he can maintain the loyalty of the tribes, the families, the middle classes, the business community, and that's a big if right now, but if he can keep that under control, then he could go down in history as the man who saved Saudi Arabia from an uncertain future. But his detractors are saying that he is going on a bold and risky path that is really, really dangerous for that country.
Frank, thanks very much indeed.